So you dedicate a brilliant section of the book to the unique way that highly intelligent, self-aware and thoughtful people get trapped in toxic dynamics. You mentioned that they're incredibly skilled at contextualizing and explaining away bad behavior because they can see the underlying trauma or humanity in someone. So when does emotional intelligence stop being a superpower and start becoming an emotional escape room?
I think when empathy starts costing you your boundaries at the end of the day. I mean, understanding somebody else's trauma or experiences or maybe things that they've gone through doesn't require harmful behavior. A lot of the times when people act out, it's because they're struggling or dealing with something. And so, when you get that line blurred and you over give and don't have strong enough boundaries while trying to have empathy for other people, you kind of give them an out for their own accountability. And so compassion and accountability must go together. And so that ultimately, seeing the good in somebody should not require you abandoning yourself.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Pages of Pandora. Today we are talking about a concept that claims everyone to value, but very few people actually know how to measure until everything goes wrong. Character. Our guest today spent 16 years navigating the high-stakes, highly polished corridors of corporate America as a strategist and executive leader. Monica Cook is the author of provocative new book, Anatomy of Character. And this is not a book of soft, vague encouragement, and Monica does not write from a distant pedestal. Instead, this book reads like an absolute reckoning. It is a razor-sharp pattern recognition roadmap for anyone who has ever felt a massive gap between what people say and what they actually do, or anyone who has ever spent years explaining away what their gut and their body already knew. Monica, welcome to the podcast. It's my pleasure to have you here.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start from the very beginning. You spent 16 years climbing the corporate ladder in the finance and leadership environment, where wearing a perfect polished professional mask is not just common, it is practically required for survival. So what was the exact moment or the final straw that made you realize the cost of keeping that mask on was becoming too expensive?
I wish there was one dramatic moment, but the truth is it wasn't just one situation or one moment. It ultimately was me realizing that I had become better at managing everybody else's comfort above and beyond my own. And I felt like I was becoming more committed to being understood than to being honest. And I was just not being myself anymore. I found that I had gotten to a place where I no longer fully recognized who I was. And so in that moment, probably just from the culmination of a bunch of little things that happened, I just decided enough is enough. And I need to assess really what is underlying here, what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that is so heavy, and that is exactly why your book hit so hard right from the jump. You can just feel the weight of that mask.
Yes. It's an intense read, I would say.
Yeah.
It's not sugar-coated, and I certainly didn't hold back on, I guess, the feelings behind it, the opinions, the driving force behind, the book. But I tried to be very delicate and add some humor in there, just because, for me personally, throughout my life, I've learned, through many experiences that life is short and it's not guaranteed to us. So I try to make it a point every day to be grateful and to enjoy every moment like it's my last. And so that's something that when I'm reading a book, if I'm going to take the time to read a book, I want to be maybe learning something and getting something out of it. But I also want to have fun while doing it.
Yeah.
I want to have a good time. So I wanted to write a book that I would want to read, and I'm picky, so it's not going to be for everybody, but it's definitely it's real. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I could agree with that. It's quite enjoying, at the same time resonating with the readers.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you feel the same way.
So you dedicate a brilliant section of the book to the unique way that highly intelligent, self-aware and thoughtful people get trapped in toxic dynamics. You mentioned that they're incredibly skilled at contextualizing and explaining away bad behavior because they can see the underlying trauma or humanity in someone. So when does emotional intelligence stop being a superpower and start becoming an emotional escape room?
I think when empathy starts costing you your boundaries. at the end of the day. I mean, understanding somebody else's trauma or experiences or maybe things that they've gone through doesn't require harmful behavior. You know, a lot of the times when people act out, it's because they're struggling or dealing with something. And so, you know, when you get that line blurred and you over give and don't have strong enough boundaries while trying to have empathy for other people, you know, you kind of give them an out for their own accountability. And so compassion and accountability must go together. And so that ultimately, you know, seeing the good in somebody should not require you abandoning yourself.
Right. Even I also feel that it happens the second you start using empathy to excuse bad behavior. We do this all the time, that we say, oh, I know they had a rough childhood. It is fine that they treat me like this. And I feel understanding why someone hurts you is great. Using it to let them keep hurting you, that is when you have locked yourself in the room.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, one of the most striking chapters in the book is the mirror, where you completely refuse to sit on pedestal. You write, I can't write a book about character and pretend I don't belong in that lineup. You challenge the reader by asking, what was it like to be on the receiving end of you? So, was there a specific moment in your life or career where you realized your pain or urgency was, as you put it, setting off car alarm in 3 zip codes?
Again, probably several moments throughout, you know, the journey, and especially in the past couple of years, that really brought everything to a head. I write in the book that this lesson had been trying to reach me for years from multiple different angles and multiple different people. And I think when we are so caught up in our own growth, our own development, knowing who we think we are, you know, I think we all, when we're in a good state and when we are, you know, existing, we're positive, hopefully positive people, good people, right? That's what makes the world go round. But ultimately, I think when we don't slow down enough to be able to look in the mirror, that's where we can get a little bit delusional, in the sense that, you know, it's easy to point the finger at other people. You know, if one thing goes wrong, it's
Absolutely.
You know, it could be a situation. If another thing happens, you know, but when you start experiencing what I was experiencing in every area of my life, it felt like I couldn't any longer say, well, I have nothing to do with all of this. I had to recognize that even though I may have been going through some things, and maybe even though I had certainly felt like I had been wronged and I had been mistreated or mischaracterized, how you react or respond to those things matters too. It doesn't excuse those feelings that you may be going through. It doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but there is such a thing that can happen where if you don't regulate yourself, or you don't learn how to channel your energy and your own emotions, you may not be helping those situations. You may be making them worse. And from my experience, I do believe that ultimately is what happened, just from different angles. In my own life, I tried too hard to manage everything, and then ultimately it backfired because I wasn't managing myself well enough.
Yeah, I respect you so much for saying that, because it's incredibly rare for an author to be that honest about their own way.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning that that's true. I mean, this is how I've always been. So I think that's helped me a lot in my life, but it's also been part of the reason I've gotten myself into some situations, because I'm very direct and I'm very honest, but I try to be very self-aware, but that is also what has gotten me in trouble, because I've thought I was very self-aware in certain instances. And one of the lessons I learned over the past year and a half is that even though you may be very strong and experienced in certain areas, it doesn't mean that you are an expert in everything. And there were certainly areas in my life that I had not experienced enough. I had not been in those dynamics enough. I had not subjected myself and taken enough risks to where I knew how to handle certain situations or disrespect or mischaracterization when it did arrive. And so everything, I truly believe, happens for a reason. And even if it's painful and even if it's stressful, I think if you embrace it and you figure out a way through it, that's where the magic happens. And that's, for me, certainly true. That my life has just blossomed and just, there have been so many new opportunities that have come my way because I decided to look in that mirror and face myself and then own what I needed to own, while also making the decision that I want to take those lessons and possibly help other people in the event that maybe they could learn those lessons a little quicker than I did.
Yeah, I agree with you because I am damn sure that a lot of readers will take away a lot of good lessons from this book.
I hope so. I hope so. And I'm sure that a lot of people will read the book and there may be this obvious thing that comes to their head, like, well, duh, that's obvious to them.
Yeah.
But the unique thing and the interesting thing about human beings and life in general is that we all view life through our own lens. And that lens is made up of our own experiences, our environment, the risks we take, what we're subjected to. And if you've never been in certain situations, it's really hard to really know what it's like until you've been through it yourself. And so I kind of liken it to when folks who aren't parents try to give parenting advice to folks and they have zero clue, but they mean well. Their intention is positive. They think they're helping maybe by providing their own thoughts or advice. But again, having a child, going through a divorce, experiencing a loss, these big life events or really extreme things that from the outside, you hear about them every day, you see them every day, and you're like, oh, I think I would handle that just fine, or I know how I would manage that when I'm in a normal state. But once you reach that, whatever point it is, maybe it's fear, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's just some sort of event that really derails you and you are dysregulated, that's when, in my opinion, and that's what I argue in the book, the true you emerges. And you've got to face that version of yourself because that's the one that you've got to train in terms of managing your reactions, managing how you behave and how you respond, basically. And so, again, that was probably one of the most important lessons I learned in my journey.
Yeah, I agree with you because I feel that a lot of people, like especially Gen Zs, are living in delusion right now. So your book can be a better work for showing them the brutal mirror.
I hope so. I mean, I think I would argue that every generation could probably learn a thing or two from the concepts in the book. The idea of taking accountability and looking in the mirror, and it's easier said than done. It's not a fun journey to go through. If you do it the right way, if you are really honest with yourself, it is not enjoyable, but it is worth it. And I hope that, if millennials, if Gen Zs, if anybody can get that lesson, like I said, maybe a few years earlier than I did. And I mean, really get that lesson, not just hear it and say, oh yeah, I agree. I mean, live it, really put yourself into these situations, take the risks, do the things so that you can experience life. I think that's a good outcome if that happens.
Right. So you write that pressure changes our body first, that before the analytical mind has even organized the story, your body is already pulling fire alarms. So why do you think we are so deeply conditioned to negotiate reality and ignore our physiology in favor of polished narrative?
Well, I think, again, in that for that particular question, it's easier said than done because how you actually move through is one thing and how other people experience you is another. But negotiating reality is something that, I didn't even realize I was doing it when I was in the moment because I am a very analytical person. I am a very detail-oriented person. And in my life, I've had to learn that not everybody wants that level of detail, and not everybody wants the full version of everything, the comprehensive look. And so because I learned that early on in my career, one of the things that I struggled with in my head was that concept of negotiating reality, because I can look at a situation and I can look at a person and I can be wronged, or I can see something that they're doing, and I then can kind of go through the whole gambit of reasons as to why. And if you look for a reason to excuse behavior, you can find it. Just like if you look for any, justification for something that you're trying to argue, there will be evidence in the world to support your view if you look for it hard enough. And so for me, I had to just recognize that is fair to a point. But again, when you hit that boundary of where your body starts suffering, where your mind starts suffering, where you no longer can think clearly because you're so confused by what's going on, or when you start to get this, I call it, the fight or flight or hypervigilance. And if you haven't experienced this, you may not know what I'm talking about. But if you go through this long enough and you live in this state of confusion or this state of feeling like you're crazy because you're constantly negotiating with your environment and your surroundings and your people and making excuses for everybody, what you're really doing when you do that long enough is, again, you're sacrificing your own well-being. You're not holding your own boundaries because it started to affect you potentially in that physical way. And that certainly, I think, is maybe one of the true alarms that folks need to pay attention to, because if you get to that point, something has to change because it's not sustainable. So
Right.
hopefully that answers your question. But
Yeah, right. As far as I understand that, because logic gives us the illusion of control. It is a way, it's very easier to say that I just need more coffee and it's been a busy week, than it is to admit that our body is rejecting the life that we have built. If we actually listen to our gut, we have to make hard choices. So we lie to ourselves to keep things comfortable.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're all guilty of it. I truly believe that. I think even good people who mean well, which I would argue everybody has good in them, it's a decision on what side we spend more time in, the good or the negative. And I've learned that, that's a personal choice. Everybody has their own power to determine their own mindset and how they respond. And again, easier said than done. But once you really understand that lesson and you start owning it, again, that's where the illusion of control goes away, because you're no longer trying to control everything. You're letting things be, but you're living your life with positivity, or you're living your life with good intention, and you're mindful of how you're flowing through life, so that if you do make a mistake, which you will, everybody, again, we're all human. We all have lessons to learn. We all have experiences to have. So we're going to mess up if we do it right. Doing it right in life, living life and being alive means you're going to mess up and, have things to fix. But the thing that we all have to pay attention to is how we handle those mess ups. Do we learn from them and really understand where we went wrong so that we can do better in the future and continue to do those reps so that we get better every day? Or do we, when we have those mistakes or those lessons, point the finger at everybody else and say, it's that, it was this, it was you, and then give ourselves the out and never truly learn what we need to learn? I think that's where people get stuck. I've been stuck in that spot before too. And true freedom, in my opinion, is when you can get through that.
Right. You have explained it very well.
Thank you. I try. I mean, it's, again, maybe more detail than most people would care for, but for me, it's just something that, it's just how I operate. I just think through it all.
Right. So a lot of high achievers pride themselves on their ability to handle high pressure situation, fix broken system and absorb chaos. But you write about the danger of the people who absorb chaos because they can still see the good in a messy situation. So how did you personally learn to stop viewing your high tolerance for dysfunction as a badge of honor?
I think again that was my body told me I had to stop. So again, mentally in my mind, I could have kept going because not a quitter. I'm the type of person that if I see a challenge, I'm going to try to figure it out. If I see a problem, I'm going to try to solve it. If I see a puzzle, I'm going to try to work it, right? I love trying to fix things and trying to solve problems. But when that starts to cost you your own health, and I talk about hypervigilance in the book a little bit. I talk about just not being able to figure out, like, when you get to that point where you almost can't tell, like, what reality is anymore. And again, hard to describe, but if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It manifests itself in your body. I mean, you are no longer able to operate at the same level because you're constantly, in your head navigating these challenges, or you've got, more intense reactions to everything because you're on edge all the time, or, you think you're showing up as a mother or a father because you're spending time with your kids, but you're really not connecting with them. I mean, there's so many different signals that you've got to pay attention to. And if you ignore those signals long enough, your body will start showing you that something's up. And that was true for me. And that's not something that, when you get to that point, that's not something you can fix quickly. That's not something that you can just decide, I'm going to fix this, and then the next day you wake up better. I mean, that is a process. It was a process to get there, and it's a process to get out of that. And it's a daily choice to get up and make a decision to keep putting in the reps and keep, being vulnerable and learn about yourself. And eventually, if you have that true moment where you look in the mirror and you do take accountability and you are honest with yourself and with others, I think, as well, that's when, you can get out of it.
Right, and I really appreciate you for saying this, because I have seen a lot of people will give up at that stage of their life, but your journey is quite inspiring. You have made the way to help others as well from your journey.
Well, I'll say that, in some of my hardest times and in some of the days that have seemed the darkest, one of the joys that I found is solace in other people's journeys. So, picking up other folks' books on social media, you see people every day shouting out messages of positivity and, encouragement and things like that. And I genuinely believe that, again, if you're looking for the good things, you'll get them. If you're looking for the negative things, if somebody is on social media and they're looking for the trash and the naysayers and just the keyboard warriors, you'll find that. But if you exude positivity and if you're looking for positivity, that will show up for you constantly. And so I felt like I made it through my journey by looking in the mirror, but also constantly looking for other people, or being exposed to other people who maybe had been through something similar, or had navigated a really difficult spot in their life, or was about to embark on something big that they were nervous about. I just wanted more of that human experience. And I found that the more I saw other people living their life for the good and really improving themselves and sharing that positivity in the world, that got me through. And I thought, well, if I can share my story and I can help one other person, then I've given back what was given to me. Does that make sense? I felt so blessed to get the assistance that I got, and nobody knows that they gave me that assistance, on social media, but it really, if you channel the right way, I truly believe that it can be a power for good. And so, between the book and then my social media profiles. That's something that I've decided I want to do as well, is try to be that type of force for other people.
Wow, that's a really great way. And I just want to admire you that you're completely like gorgeous. Like you are giving me some very optimistic energy towards me. Like what is the
Aw,
hidden
that's
secret
sweet.
of being this gorgeous queen?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. That's so sweet. I appreciate you so much.
My last question to you is one of the most powerful lines in your book premise is the faster you stop negotiating with reality, the more powerful your decisions become. So for you personally, what did you have to stop negotiating with in your own life to finally gain the clarity to write this collection?
That's the decision point, right? I talk a lot about pattern recognition. That's something that in my second book, I Notice Things, That's the Problem, which I just released last week, I talk about in more depth. But I mention I'm very much so detail oriented. I'm very self-aware, but I'm very observant. I just pay attention. And so one of the lessons I had to learn was that I had to stop negotiating with the patterns that I could see clearly, just because I didn't like the answers that I was getting, right? Or maybe I didn't like what I was seeing. I had to stop negotiating with my own reality, and I had to start trusting myself again, because I lost that self-trust. I lost my own internal authority, and that's part of the journey that I've been on and what I'm writing in my books, which I've got several more coming. But the goal is to lead back to finding your internal authority again, and your self-trust and that conviction, because once you have that, you can't be manipulated anymore. You can't be as confused as I once was, because you know who you are and you know you're a force for good. So I had to stop negotiating with those patterns that I didn't like, but I could clearly see. And I also had to accept that my clarity doesn't necessarily require everybody else to agree. That's not to say I'm always right. I'm not. But in situations where I've done the work and I have the truth on my side, and I know with my full body that I'm in the right, I have to accept that not everybody is going to see things from my lens, and my truth is my truth, and theirs may be different. So I think the faster you can get to that point and really slow down and make sure that you're cognizant of those facts, the more powerful your decisions become. And that was really the journey I had to go through to get here.
Wow, wonderful. And I just want to say thank you, Monica. Thank you so much, because this book is an absolute reckoning, but it is also most practical and helpful roadmap for anyone looking to get their power back. And I would say that the book is Anatomy of Character, and it is available everywhere now. You can check out, and you can also connect with the author on Instagram to stay connected with her creative journey. She is posting wonderful videos that is quite helpful, and this is the book cover that you can see on the screen.
Yes, Anatomy of Character.
Yes.
And here's the one. This one will be out soon on
Wow,
hardcover.
I'm so excited to read this one.
Yes, this one is, they're both, for the right reader, they're going to be very good journeys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. It was a pleasure to meet you, and maybe we'll have a chance to connect again on the next book if you get a chance to read it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Absolutely. Have a great one. Have a good day.
Yeah, same. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.